continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Return. Liam Knox stood at the airport terminal, his weathered face reflecting the harsh realities he'd endured for 7 years. At 43, his once jet-black hair now showcased streaks of silver at the temples, badges of the sacrifice he'd made for his family. The international construction company had offered him a fortune to oversee their most dangerous projects in war-torn regions across the Middle East and Africa, a position nobody wanted. But Liam had taken it without hesitation. "Your family will be set for life," his boss had promised when offering the position. For 7 years, Liam had lived in shipping containers and temporary housing, breathing dust and dodging militant attacks, all while sending 90% of his substantial salary home to his wife Diana and their 2 children, Audrey and Cooper. He'd missed birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, sacrificing presents for prosperity. Communication had dwindled over the years. At first, Diana's video calls were frequent, the children always eager to see him. By year 3, they became monthly affairs. By year 5, they were rare, with Diana citing poor connection or the children being busy. But Liam persisted, building their future from afar. Now he clutched his carry-on, the only luggage he needed. His real treasures weren't material possessions, but the financial security he'd built for his family. College funds, paid-off mortgages, and substantial investments. He'd purchased a beautiful vacation property on Lake Tahoe as a surprise, their dream destination where they'd honeymooned 18 years ago. The decision to return had been spontaneous. His final project had finished early, and he'd managed to negotiate an early contract release with a substantial bonus. He hadn't told Diana. He wanted to surprise her. As the taxi pulled up to the suburban Milwaukee home he'd purchased before leaving, Liam felt a strange dissonance. The property looked different, upgraded with an expansive deck, a new garage, and landscaping that screamed professional maintenance. "Nice house," the driver commented. "Should be," Liam answered. "I paid for every brick." Anticipation building. He paid the driver and approached his front door. After 7 years of working in the world's most dangerous places, why did ringing his own doorbell fill him with such inexplicable dread? He pressed the bell, hearing the unfamiliar chime. They'd changed it. Then again, 7 years was enough time for many changes. The door swung open. Diana stood before him, her auburn hair now expertly highlighted, wearing designer clothes he didn't recognize. For a moment, she froze, her face draining of color. No running into his arms. No tears of joy. No warm welcome. "Liam," she finally stated, her voice flat. From behind her, Audrey appeared, now 17 and practically a woman. Next to her stood Cooper, 14, almost as tall as his sister. Neither showed a flicker of recognition. "Mom," Audrey whispered, "who's this guy?" "Nobody," Diana answered sharply, her eyes never leaving Liam's. "Nobody important." A knife to the heart would have been less painful. "Diana, it's me," Liam said, his voice strong despite the confusion. "I'm home." The project finished early. Cooper stepped forward protectively. "Mom said you should leave." Before Liam could respond, another voice called from inside the house. "Diana, who's at the door?" A tall man with salt and pepper hair appeared behind his family, resting his hand possessively on Diana's shoulder. He wore a cashmere sweater and had the manicured look of someone who'd never worked a day of hard labor in his life. "Who's this?" Liam demanded, his contractor's hands, calloused and strong, clenching into fists. Diana finally found her voice. "This is Roland. Roland Baxter. My fiancé." Fiancé. The word felt like acid on Liam's tongue. "We're still married, Diana." Roland's expression shifted from confusion to realization. "You're the ex-husband? The one who abandoned the family?" "Abandoned?" Liam's voice dropped dangerously low. "I've been working overseas to support them." "That's not how Diana tells it," Roland replied smoothly. "She said you chose money over family and disappeared years ago." Before Liam could correct this outrageous lie, a car pulled into the driveway. His younger brother Oscar stepped out, expression changing from casual to shock when he spotted Liam. "Well, look who finally crawled back," Oscar called, approaching with a bitter smile. The moneymaker finally failed? Liam stared at his brother, the same brother he'd been sending support payments to for years after Oscar's business had tanked. The same brother who should have been checking on his family while he was away. "Why are you here, Oscar?" Liam asked, his voice calm but deadly. "Sunday dinner," Oscar shrugged. "Roland invited me. He's good like that, takes care of the family. Unlike some people." Behind Oscar, another car arrived. Diana's father, Walter, emerged, his weathered face twisting into a sneer upon seeing Liam. "Why would you show your face now?" Walter spat. "After what you put my daughter through." Liam stood there, surrounded by people he'd sacrificed everything for, all regarding him as an intruder. Even Max, the German shepherd he'd brought home as a puppy before leaving, growled from behind Cooper's legs, not recognizing his original master. In that moment, Liam understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a complete rewriting of history. He stepped back, his face betraying nothing of the volcanic rage building inside him. "I understand," he said simply. Their relief at his apparent retreat was palpable. "I'll be in touch," he added, turning to leave. "Don't bother," Diana called after him. "We've moved on." Liam walked away without looking back, his mind already shifting from shock to something colder and more calculated. 7 years in conflict zones had taught him many things, including how to identify enemies and plan strategic responses. They had no idea what they'd just awakened. Chapter 2: Revelations. Liam checked into the Grayson Hotel downtown, a modest establishment where he could collect his thoughts. The spacious suite felt empty compared to the shipping container that had been his home for years, but at least here he could think clearly. His phone buzzed, a text from Bernard Whitfield, his financial advisor and one of the few people who had kept in regular contact during his overseas stint. "Heard you're back in town. Need to talk ASAP. My office tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bernard was more than just a financial advisor. He was the closest thing Liam had to a friend. They'd served together in the Marines before civilian life, and when Liam had started making serious money on dangerous overseas projects, Bernard was the one he trusted to manage it. The next morning, Bernard's expression was grim when Liam entered his downtown office. "You didn't tell me you were coming back early," Bernard said, bypassing pleasantries. "It was supposed to be a surprise," Liam replied flatly. Bernard sighed, sliding a thick folder across his desk. "Then I guess we're both full of surprises today." For the next hour, Bernard laid out what he'd discovered. Diana had been systematically draining their accounts for years. Not all at once, Bernard would have noticed that, but gradually transferring money to private accounts and making substantial cash withdrawals. "I suspected something was off about 2 years ago," Bernard explained. "The withdrawal patterns changed, but legally, she had access. You made sure of that." Liam nodded numbly. "How much?" "About 30% of what you sent home. The good news is, I managed to secure the majority in investments she couldn't touch due to the paperwork we set up." Bernard hesitated before continuing. "There's more. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago." "You what?" Something felt wrong, Liam. The way she dodged questions about investment priorities during our quarterly calls. "I've been managing money for 20 years. I know when someone's hiding something." The PI's report was comprehensive. Diana and Roland had been involved for nearly 5 years. Roland, a real estate developer with a string of failed ventures, had met Diana at a charity function. Within months, they were involved. By year 2, he had moved his things into the house when the children were at school, leaving before they returned home. By year 3, he had essentially taken Liam's place, attending school functions and family events. Most damning were the conversations the PI had recorded. Diana and Roland laughing about the sucker overseas who kept sending money while Roland enjoyed his wife and home. "I'm sorry," Bernard said quietly. "If I'd known earlier." Liam shook his head. "Not your fault." "There's one more thing," Bernard added reluctantly. "Your brother Oscar has been part of this too. He's been working for Roland's company for the past 4 years, despite the monthly support payments you've been sending him." The betrayal was complete. Diana, Roland, Oscar, possibly even his children, all benefiting from his sacrifice while erasing him from their lives. "What are you going to do?" Bernard asked, concerned by Liam's eerie calm. "First, I need a complete picture," Liam answered. "Diana filed for divorce 3 years ago, used abandonment as grounds. But I never received any paperwork." Bernard's expression darkened. "They used your overseas address, knowing mail delivery was unreliable in conflict zones. When you didn't respond, they proceeded with a default judgment. So legally, you're divorced. But the financial settlement is still pending. Diana's lawyer has been pushing for the court to liquidate everything, including your protected investments." Liam nodded slowly. "Who's her lawyer?" "Guy named Philip Thornton." "Thornton," Liam repeated, memorizing the name. "And Roland's business?" "Baxter Development Group. They've been buying up properties on the north side. Nothing spectacular, but they've secured some interesting zoning variances recently." Liam stood, his decision made. "I need you to do something for me, Bernard. Liquidate $5 million from my overseas accounts. I want cash, bearer bonds, and gold, untraceable. And I need a secure location to store it." Bernard's eyebrows shot up. "Liam, what are you planning?" "Information gathering," Liam replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just need operating capital." "This sounds more like war preparation." Liam's expression turned hard. "That's exactly what it is." As he left Bernard's office, Liam made a call to a number few civilians would recognize. A private security contractor who owed him several favors from their time in Kandahar. "Jackson, it's Knox. I'm calling in those markers. I need a team. Discreet, thorough, and with nothing to lose." Chapter 3. The Architect of Revenge. Liam established his base of operations in a luxury penthouse apartment downtown, paid for in cash through a shell company Bernard had quietly established years earlier as part of Liam's investment portfolio. The three-bedroom space offered panoramic views of the city and, more importantly, complete privacy. Within 2 days, his team began to assemble. First came Mira Voss, a cybersecurity specialist with a background in both government and private sector work. Her slight frame and quiet demeanor belied her reputation as one of the most formidable hackers in the business. "The payment is satisfactory," she noted, reviewing the contract. "But I'm more interested in the challenge. Corporate security systems, personal devices, financial records. You're asking for complete digital penetration. Will that be a problem?" Liam asked. Myra's smile was thin. "Not for me. Just making sure you understand what you're purchasing." Next arrived Damon Cross, a former detective forced out of the police department after a controversial shooting. His investigative skills remained sharp, and his network of contact within law enforcement remained intact despite his official status. "Your wife's fiancé," Damon reported after his first day of investigation, "isn't just a small-time developer. Roland Baxter comes from old money that dried up 2 generations ago. He's been trying to rebuild the family fortune through increasingly desperate ventures." "And my brother's involvement?" "Oscar handles community relations, schmoozing with planning commissions, zoning boards, that sort of thing. His previous business failure seems to have been carefully orchestrated. Filed bankruptcy the same month he started working for Baxter, which protected his assets while discharging debts." The final member of Liam's team was Colin Fletcher, a financial forensics specialist who had previously worked for the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. His specialty was following money trails that others wanted hidden. "Your wife's been smart," Colin noted, reviewing Diana's financial activities. "Not smart enough, but careful. The money she siphoned from your accounts has been moving through a series of shell companies before ending up in ventures controlled by Baxter. On paper, she's not directly connected. And Roland's business?" Colin's expression grew serious. "That's where it gets interesting. Baxter Development has been buying properties along the proposed light rail expansion route, properties that mysteriously receive zoning changes just before purchase. The timing suggests insider information." Liam absorbed this information, the pieces falling into place. "My father-in-law, Walter, sits on the City Planning Commission." "Indeed he does," Colin confirmed, "and has voted in favor of every variance requested by Baxter Development." For 3 weeks, Liam's team gathered intelligence, building a comprehensive picture of the elaborate betrayal orchestrated against him. Diana hadn't just taken another lover. She had systematically worked to erase Liam's existence while using his money to finance Roland's business ventures. Oscar hadn't just abandoned his brother. He had actively participated in the scheme, using his connections to facilitate Roland's property deals while continuing to accept Liam's financial support. Walter hadn't just sided with his daughter. He had abused his position on the Planning Commission to provide insider information about the city's development plans, allowing Roland to purchase properties that would skyrocket in value once the light rail project was announced publicly. Even more painful was what Liam discovered about his children. Myra's digital surveillance revealed text messages showing that Audrey and Cooper had been coached on what to say when Liam returned. "Just pretend you don't remember him," Diana had instructed. "It'll be easier that way." Only Bernard had remained loyal, quietly protecting what he could of Liam's assets while trying to uncover the truth. On the 25th day after his return, Liam gathered his team in the penthouse for a final briefing. "We now have a complete picture," he announced. "Everyone's roles, motivations, and vulnerabilities are clear." "What's the objective?" Damon asked. "Evidence gathering for a legal case." Liam's expression was cold. "No, there will be no lawsuits, no police reports, no court appearances. That would be too merciful." He unrolled architectural plans across the conference table, detailed schematics of what appeared to be a resort property. "This is Lakeview Lodge," Liam explained. "A luxury retreat on Lake Tahoe I purchased 3 years ago through a holding company. It's been renovated according to my specifications, including certain custom features." The team studied the plans, their expressions growing increasingly concerned as they noted the unusual aspects of the property's design. "2 days from now, I'll be making a phone call," Liam continued. "Everyone who betrayed me will receive an invitation they won't be able to refuse. And then the real work begins." Mira looked up from the plans. "These renovations, they're designed for psychological warfare." "Precisely," Liam confirmed. "I spent 7 years in war zones, learning how environments can be weaponized. Now I'm putting that knowledge to use." "This goes beyond revenge," Colin warned. "What you're describing is justice," Liam interrupted, "delivered by the only person who still remembers what that word means." As his team exchanged uncomfortable glances, Liam's phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Diana's lawyer, demanding an immediate meeting to discuss the financial settlement of their divorce. Perfect timing. "Tomorrow," Liam announced, "we extend our first invitation. Diana and her lawyer will come here, thinking they're negotiating from a position of strength." His smile was terrifying in its calmness. They have no idea what's waiting for them. Chapter 4. First Blood. Philip Thornton had the polished arrogance of a lawyer who'd never lost a high-profile divorce case. His tailored suit and monogrammed cufflink spoke of success, as did his condescending smile when he entered Liam's penthouse with Diana at his side. Diana had dressed carefully for the occasion in a conservative navy suit that projected both wealth and respectability. Her expression was a practiced mask of dignified suffering, the abandoned wife finally confronting her negligent husband. "Mr. Knox," Thornton began after declining refreshments, "I appreciate your willingness to meet. Perhaps we can resolve this matter efficiently." Liam, dressed in a simple black suit that highlighted his physique, hardened by years of physical labor rather than gym workouts, gestured toward the conference table where documents were neatly arranged. "Efficiency is my specialty," he replied, his voice neutral. Diana barely glanced at him, keeping her eyes fixed on the panoramic windows. She'd clearly prepared herself to face the broken, desperate man she expected to find. "Our position is straightforward," Thornton continued, removing documents from his briefcase. "Mrs. Baxter." "Her name is still Knox," Liam interrupted quietly. Thornton's smile tightened. "According to the divorce decree finalized 3 years ago, which you failed to contest, which I was never properly served," Liam corrected. "The court found service sufficient," Thornton countered smoothly. "Regardless, the financial settlement remains open. Given your absence and the client's sole responsibility for raising your children, we're seeking full distribution of all marital assets and investments." Liam nodded thoughtfully. I see. And what about the funds already taken? Diana's head snapped toward him, her composure slipping momentarily. I don't know what you're implying, Thornton responded, but my client has only accessed what was necessary for family maintenance. Liam smiled, sliding a folder across the table. Would family maintenance include $2.4 million transferred to Baxter Development Group over the past 4 years? The color drained from Diana's face. Thornton recovered quickly. Any business investments Mrs. Knox made were within her rights as... Let me be clear, Liam interrupted, his voice still eerily calm. I have comprehensive documentation of every dollar removed from our accounts, every transfer to shell companies, and every investment in Roland's business ventures. I also have documented evidence of insider trading related to the light rail project, facilitated by my father-in-law's position on the Planning Commission. Diana found her voice at last. You're bluffing. In response, Liam pressed a button on a remote. The large television screen on the wall illuminated, showing footage of Diana and Roland in intimate moments, interspersed with recordings of their conversations about using Liam's money. I've been gathering evidence for 3 weeks, Liam explained as Diana stared at the screen in horror. My team is quite thorough. Thornton attempted to regain control. These recordings are likely inadmissible. This isn't about court admissibility, Liam cut him off. This is about negotiating from a position of truth. He pressed another button, and the screen displayed financial records highlighting the money trail from Liam's accounts to Roland's business. Here's my counteroffer, Liam stated, sliding another document across the table. Diana signs over any remaining claim to my assets. In exchange, I don't provide this evidence to the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the local district attorney. Thornton skimmed the document, his professional demeanor cracking. This is blackmail. This is consequence, Liam corrected. Your client conspired to commit fraud, misappropriation of funds, and potentially insider trading. She can walk away with what she's already taken, which is substantial, or she can face federal charges. Her choice. Diana's carefully constructed facade crumbled entirely. You can't do this. What about Cooper and Audrey? The children you taught to forget me? Liam responded, his voice finally betraying emotion. The ones you instructed to treat me like a stranger. He displayed text messages between Diana and the children, showing her coaching them on how to react to his return. Diana's shock turned to anger. You've been spying on my children? I've been learning the truth, Liam corrected. Something in short supply in this family. Thornton attempted to salvage the situation. Perhaps we can reach a more equitable arrangement. This isn't a negotiation, Liam stated flatly. It's a courtesy notification. Diana signs today, or the evidence goes to authorities tomorrow. After 30 minutes of futile protests and threats, Diana signed the agreement with a shaking hand. As she and her lawyer prepared to leave, Liam delivered his final blow. One more thing, he said casually. I'll be hosting a family gathering at my Lake Tahoe property next weekend. I expect everyone to attend. You, Roland, the children, Oscar, and Walter. Diana stared at him in disbelief. Why will we agree to that? Liam smiled coldly. Because if you don't, the evidence still goes to the authorities. Consider it a transition ceremony. One final family gathering before we go our separate ways. You're insane, Diana whispered. No, Liam replied softly. I'm finally seeing clearly. The invitation will arrive tomorrow with all details. Make sure everyone attends. After they left, Mira emerged from the adjacent room where she'd been monitoring the meeting. Phase 1 complete, she confirmed. Her phone has been cloned and the spyware is installed. We'll have access to all her communications with Roland and the others. Liam nodded, staring at the door through which Diana had just departed. Prepare the Lake Tahoe property. We move to Phase 2. Chapter 5, The Web Titans. The invitation arrived at Diana's house by private courier the following morning. An elegant envelope containing a card with embossed gold lettering. Mr. Liam Knox requests the presence of the Knox and Baxter families for a weekend retreat at Lakeview Lodge, Lake Tahoe. Private air transportation provided. Attendance is mandatory for resolution of all outstanding matters. Included was a list of attendees: Diana, Roland, Audrey, Cooper, Oscar, and Walter. The date was set for 3 days later. Diana immediately called Roland, her voice trembling as she explained what had transpired in Liam's penthouse. "He knows everything," she hissed, pacing her kitchen. "About the money, about your business, about my father's involvement. He has recordings, financial records, everything." Roland's initial bravado quickly faded as Diana detailed the evidence Liam had presented. "This is impossible," he protested. "Nobody could have gathered that much information so quickly." "Well, he did," Diana snapped. "And now he's demanding we all go to some property at Lake Tahoe." "We don't have to do anything," Roland insisted. "He's bluffing about going to the authorities." "Are you willing to risk federal charges on that assumption?" Diana demanded. "Because I'm not, and neither is my father. Walter's already called me in a panic. His entire reputation would be destroyed if this came out." Similar conversations occurred throughout the day as each invitee received their notification. Oscar called Roland in a fury, demanding to know how Liam had discovered his involvement. Walter contacted his personal attorney, seeking assurances about potential legal exposure. From his penthouse command center, Liam and his team monitored these panicked exchanges through the surveillance network they had established. "They're reacting exactly as predicted," Damon noted, listening to the recorded calls. "They're scared but still underestimating you." "Perfect," Liam replied. "Fear makes people compliant, but overconfidence makes them careless." The next morning, Oscar made his move, arriving unannounced at Liam's penthouse. Security allowed him up per Liam's instructions. "Brother," Oscar greeted with forced joviality when Liam opened the door. "We need to talk." Liam gestured him inside without warmth. "By all means." Oscar whistled, taking in a luxury apartment. "Nice place. Different from those shipping containers you mentioned in your emails." "I saved my money," Liam replied simply. "Something you might have considered." Oscar's friendly demeanor slipped momentarily before he recovered. "Look, about this Lake Tahoe thing, it's unnecessary. Whatever issues you have with Diana and Roland, they don't involve me." Liam poured himself a whiskey, not offering one to his brother. "Is that what you think?" "I know I should have been more present while you were gone," Oscar admitted, attempting to sound sincere. "But I was dealing with my own problems. The business failure hit me hard." "Yes, the conveniently timed bankruptcy that protected your assets while discharging your debts," Liam noted. "Filed the same month you started working for Roland." Oscar's expression froze. "That's not—" "Please," Liam interrupted. "Don't insult my intelligence. You've been working as Roland's community liaison for 4 years, helping secure zoning changes through your connections, all while accepting monthly support payments from me." "I needed that money," Oscar protested weakly. "And Roland needed your connections," Liam finished. "A mutually beneficial arrangement at my expense." Oscar abandoned the pretense. "What do you want? Money? I can pay back what you sent." "I want you at Lake Tahoe," Liam answered simply. "You, Diana, Roland, the children, Walter, everyone who participated in erasing me from my own life while benefiting from my sacrifice." "For what purpose?" Liam smiled thinly. "Closure." Oscar studied his brother's face, seeing something that clearly disturbed him. "You've changed, Liam." 7 years in war zones will do that," Liam agreed. "You learn who your real enemies are." After Oscar left, Mira confirmed that the tracking software had been successfully installed on his phone during his visit, the real purpose behind Liam allowing the meeting. "Now we have full surveillance on Diana, Roland, Oscar, and Walter," she reported. "Only the children remain. They'll be at the school fundraiser tonight," Liam noted. "The one Roland is sponsoring to boost his community image." Damon raised an eyebrow. "You're attending a school function?" "No," Liam replied. "But you are, as a potential donor interested in Baxter's development projects. Get close enough to clone their phones." That night, while Damon executed his mission at the school event, Liam reviewed the final preparations for Lakeview Lodge with Colin. "The property modifications are complete," Colin confirmed. "Individual rooms prepared according to specifications, security systems tested, isolation protocols functional." And our legal protection? The property is owned by an offshore corporation with no traceable connection to you. The staff has been replaced with our contracted personnel, all with proper hospitality credentials, but specialized backgrounds. The airspace has been registered for private use, and lake access is restricted to the property's private dock. Liam nodded in satisfaction. And the psychological profiles? Colin opened 5 detailed dossiers, one for each adult guest. Complete. Diana fears public humiliation above all else. Roland's primary anxiety is financial failure. Oscar cannot stand being perceived as the lesser brother. Walter's reputation in the community is his most prized possession. And the children? Colin hesitated. Audrey and Cooper are victims in this, Liam. They were manipulated. They were participants, Liam corrected coldly. They knew who I was and chose to pretend otherwise. They accepted the narrative that I abandoned them, despite years of video calls and financial support. They're teenagers. Their mother had influence, yes, but they made choices. Liam's expression softened slightly. Their rooms are different from the others, less intense. This is about education, not punishment. The following morning, a luxury SUV arrived at Diana's house to transport the family to the private airfield. Similar vehicles collected Oscar and Walter from their respective homes. As the private jet bearing his guests took off, Liam boarded his own aircraft, a military-grade helicopter that would allow him to arrive at Lakeview Lodge well ahead of them. The stage was set. The players were in motion, and Liam Knox, architect of the most meticulously planned revenge in history, allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction before the real work began. Chapter 6. Welcome to Lakeview Lodge. Lakeview Lodge presented an image of rustic luxury nestled among towering pines at the edge of Lake Tahoe. The main building featured a massive timber frame design with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the crystal-clear waters. 5 private guest cabins surrounded the main lodge, each offering apparent privacy while remaining within the property's secured perimeter. The 8-acre estate was isolated from neighboring properties by dense forest on 3 sides and the lake on the 4th. A single access road connected to the main highway, while a private dock provided water access. To casual observation, it appeared to be nothing more than an exclusive retreat for the wealthy. Appearances, as Liam knew all too well, could be deceiving. The private jet carrying his guests landed at the small regional airport, where luxury SUVs awaited to transport them the final 30 minutes to the property. Upon arrival, they found the main lodge welcoming, with a roaring fire in the massive stone fireplace and staff members offering refreshments. Liam greeted them in the great room, dressed casually in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater. "Welcome to Lakeview Lodge," he announced. "You're home for the next 3 days." Diana glanced around nervously. "This is unexpected." "I've always appreciated irony," Liam replied. "This property sits not far from where we honeymooned 18 years ago. Remember?" Diana shifted uncomfortably, while Roland maintained a protective stance beside her. The children, Audrey and Cooper, stood awkwardly, clearly uncertain about their role in this strange family gathering. Oscar attempted to break the tension. "Hell of a place, brother. Real estate investment." "Something like that," Liam answered. "Brandon will show you all to your accommodations. We'll gather for dinner at 7. Brandon, a former military operative now posing as the lodge manager, led the group to their assigned cabins. Each had been carefully prepared according to Liam's specifications. Diana and Roland were given the blue pine cabin, decorated with subtle reminders of Liam's presence during their marriage. Family photos he'd sent from overseas were artfully displayed on walls and shelves, while the sound system had been programmed to occasionally play snippets of Diana's voice from recorded video calls, praising Liam's sacrifice and promising eternal love. Oscar was assigned the cedar cabin, where financial documents detailing his monthly support payments from Liam had been incorporated into the decor, along with bankruptcy filings that revealed the carefully timed nature of his business failure. Walter took residence in the Aspen cabin, furnished with framed copies of planning commission votes that benefited Baxter Development, alongside financial analyses showing the subsequent property value increases. The children were given the most normal accommodations in Spruce Cabin, though their phones mysteriously stopped working as soon as they crossed the property line, replaced by restricted devices that only allowed communication within the lodge network. As the guests settled in, Mira monitored their reactions from the control room hidden beneath the main lodge. Psychological distress indicators are presenting in all adult subjects, she reported to Liam. Elevated heart rates, increased perspiration, anxiety responses. And the surveillance systems? Fully operational in all cabins. Audio and video feeds are clear. Begin Phase 1 environmental adjustments, Liam instructed. Subtle variations only. Throughout the cabins, nearly imperceptible changes began to take effect. In Diana and Roland's cabin, the temperature fluctuated by 2 degrees in random intervals. In Oscar's space, the lighting dimmed and brightened unpredictably. Walter's cabin featured occasional, barely audible recordings of his most damning planning commission statements. At precisely 7 o'clock, the guests gathered in the main lodge's dining room. The table was set impeccably, with Liam at the head and place cards directing each person to specific seats, strategically positioning Diana directly across from him. "I've taken the liberty of planning the menu," Liam announced as the first course was served. "Each dish represents a location where I worked during my 7 years abroad." The appetizer, a spiced lamb dish, arrived with Liam's casual narration. "This represents Afghanistan, my first overseas post. 18-hour days rebuilding infrastructure destroyed by Taliban forces. I slept in a shipping container that reached 110 degrees during summer days." Diana picked at her food uncomfortably. "Liam, perhaps we should discuss why we're all here." "All in good time," he replied pleasantly. "We have 3 days together. No need to rush." As the main course arrived, a North African fish preparation, Liam continued his travelogue. "This dish comes from my time in Libya. Our compound was attacked 3 times during my stay. During the second attack, I took shrapnel in my left shoulder. The medical facilities were rudimentary." He rolled up his sleeve to reveal a jagged scar. "I was back at work within 48 hours. The project couldn't afford delays." Cooper, who had remained silent until now, suddenly asked, "Did you really get hurt working?" "Many times," Liam answered, meeting his son's eyes directly. "The danger was why the pay was so high, why I could afford to send so much money home." "Mom said you left because you didn't want a family anymore," Audrey interjected. "That you chose money over us." A heavy silence fell over the table. "Is that what you believed?" Liam asked quietly. "It's what we were told," Cooper replied defensively. Liam nodded thoughtfully. "Tomorrow, I'll show you evidence of what actually happened. Tonight, let's simply enjoy our meal." As dessert was served, Roland attempted to assert control. "This property must have cost a fortune. Part of your hidden assets, I presume." "The very ones you've been trying to access through Diana," Liam confirmed pleasantly. "Tomorrow morning at 9, we'll begin our business discussions. I recommend everyone gets a good night's rest." After dinner, the guests retired to their cabins, unsettled by Liam's calm demeanor and cryptic statements. What none realized was that their first night at Lakeview Lodge had been designed as merely an introduction to what awaited them. In the control room, Liam watched the cabin feeds as his guests prepared for bed. "Increase environmental adjustments by 15%, he instructed Mira, and initiate first phase isolation. Throughout the property, subtle changes took effect. Cell service, already weak, disappeared entirely. Internet connections failed. The property's landline telephones registered as functional but routed all calls to Liam's team. By midnight, Lakeview Lodge was completely cut off from the outside world, its occupants unaware that they had entered a psychologically engineered environment from which there would be no easy escape. Damon joined Liam at the monitoring station. "They're all asleep except Diana. She's still trying to get her phone to work." "She won't succeed," Liam replied, watching her frustrated attempts. "By morning, they'll realize communication is impossible. That's when the real work begins." "Are you sure about this approach?" Damon asked carefully. "There are simpler ways to exact revenge." Liam's expression hardened. "I spent 7 years in hell to provide for these people. They spent those same years betraying me, stealing from me, and erasing me from existence. There's nothing simple about what they deserve. He turned back to the monitors, watching Diana finally give up on her phone and climb into bed beside Roland. Tomorrow, Liam promised quietly, they learn what it means to be truly abandoned. Chapter 7. Sins Exposed. Morning at Lakeview Lodge arrived with seemingly perfect tranquility. Sunlight sparkling on the lake, the scent of pine filling the crisp mountain air, breakfast laid out in the main lodge's dining room. Yet beneath this serene surface, anxiety had taken root among the guests. "My phone still isn't working," Diana complained, joining the others at the breakfast table. "And neither is the cabin's internet connection." "Same with ours," Audrey confirmed, looking up from her useless device. Roland frowned. "It's a remote location. Connectivity issues aren't surprising." "The landline's working," Liam noted casually, sipping his coffee. "Though only for emergency calls. We are rather isolated here." Oscar studied his brother suspiciously. "Convenient isolation. Privacy," Liam corrected. "For our discussions." After breakfast, Liam led the group to the lodge's conference room, a wood-paneled space with a large table and a projection screen on one wall. As everyone took their seats, Brandon distributed folders to each adult guest. "Before we begin," Liam announced, "I want to establish a framework for our discussions. Each of you has made choices regarding me and my absence. Today, we'll examine those choices with complete transparency." He activated the projection system, displaying a timeline beginning 7 years earlier with his departure for overseas work. "Let's start with the financial arrangements," Liam continued. "During my absence, I sent home approximately $12 million in salary and bonuses. Diana had access to our joint accounts, from which she withdrew $4.3 million over 7 years. Diana shifted uncomfortably. I needed to support the family." "Indeed," Liam agreed. "However, the children's expenses, including private school tuition, extracurricular activities, and health care, totaled less than $1 million during that period. The household expenses, including the mortgage I paid off before leaving, couldn't have exceeded another $1 million. He advanced to the next slide, showing a complex diagram of financial transfers. "This leaves approximately $2.3 million that moved through a series of shell companies before being invested in Baxter Development Group Ventures." Roland intervened. "Diana was entitled to invest marital assets as she saw fit in her husband's business competitor while still married to me." Liam countered. "That's an interesting legal position." Walter cleared his throat. "I advised her on those investments. They appeared sound, especially with insider information about upcoming zoning changes," Liam added, displaying planning commission documents with Walter's signature. "Convenient how Baxter Properties received variances just before the light rail announcement." The color drained from Walter's face. Liam turned his attention to Oscar. "Then there's my brother, accepting $8,000 monthly support payments from me, while simultaneously working for Roland and helping secure those same zoning variances. I needed income during my bankruptcy," Oscar protested weakly. "The bankruptcy you filed the same month you started working for Roland," Liam noted. "Quite a coincidence." For the next 2 hours, Liam methodically presented evidence of each betrayal, from Diana's systematic draining of accounts to Roland's strategic exploitation of her access to funds, from Oscar's duplicitous financial dealings to Walter's abuse of his planning commission position. Most devastating were the recorded conversations between various combinations of adults, plotting how to prevent Liam from ever reclaiming his place in the family. Throughout this presentation, Audrey and Cooper sat in stunned silence, witnessing the adults they trusted being exposed as manipulative conspirators. "Mom," Audrey finally said, her voice shaking, "you told us Dad abandoned us for money." Diana couldn't meet her daughter's eyes. "It was complicated, honey." "Was it complicated when you coached us to pretend we didn't recognize him?" Cooper demanded, his adolescent face flushing with anger. "Those text messages you sent us before he came home, those weren't complicated. They were lies." Liam allowed this family confrontation to unfold without intervention, watching as the carefully constructed narrative Diana had built began to crumble under the weight of evidence. "I think," he finally said, "we should take a break. Lunch will be served on the terrace in 30 minutes. This afternoon, we'll discuss consequences." As the group dispersed, shaken by the morning's revelations, Liam returned to the control room where Mira awaited with updates. "Psychological stress indicators are elevated in all adult subjects," she reported. "Diana's particularly high. Pulse rate hasn't dropped below 100 since the financial evidence was presented. And Roland, attempting to make calls whenever he's alone. He's tried reaching his lawyer 6 times in the past hour." Liam nodded in satisfaction. "Increased cabin environmental adjustments to Phase 2. I want them unsettled but functional." During lunch, the group maintained an uneasy silence, broken only by occasional attempts at small talk from Oscar. The children sat apart from the adults, whispering among themselves and casting accusing glances at their mother. Roland finally addressed Liam directly. "What's your endgame here? Money? You've clearly protected most of your assets. Humiliation? You've achieved that already. What more do you want?" Liam considered the question thoughtfully. "Justice," he eventually replied. "Proportional response to deliberate harm." "We're talking about a divorce and some poor communication," Roland protested. "Not capital crimes." "Are we?" Liam's voice remained calm. "You systematically erased a man's existence. You stole his identity as husband and father. You rewrote history to villainize him while profiting from his sacrifice. If that happened to you, what would you consider appropriate consequences?" Before Roland could respond, Brandon approached to whisper something in Liam's ear. "It seems we have an unexpected development," Liam announced. "Roland has been attempting to arrange outside intervention. As a result, we'll accelerate our afternoon schedule." He stood, gesturing toward the main lodge. "Everyone inside, please. It's time for individual accountability." The group was led back to the conference room, where the atmosphere had changed dramatically. The lights were dimmer, and the room's temperature had dropped several degrees. On the table before each adult seat lay a single item related to their particular betrayal. Before Diana, printed transcripts of her conversations with Roland, mocking Liam's absence while planning how to access his remaining assets. Before Roland, financial documents revealing how his failing business had been propped up by money stolen from Liam. Before Oscar, bank statements showing support payments from Liam deposited the same days he received commission payments from Roland for securing zoning variances. Before Walter, planning commission votes alongside property purchases by Baxter Development, demonstrating the pattern of insider trading. "Each of you," Liam began, "has a choice to make. Behind your folders are legal documents. Signing them represents accountability and resolution. Refusing means consequences." Diana opened her folder first. "This is insane. You want me to sign over all remaining marital assets and publicly admit to financial fraud?" "I want you to acknowledge what you did," Liam corrected. "The financial arrangements are secondary." Roland examined his documents next. "This would bankrupt me. You're demanding repayment of all funds invested in my company through Diana, plus punitive damages. Funds stolen from me," Liam noted. "With interest." Oscar and Walter found similar agreements tailored to their specific betrayals. Oscar required to repay all support payments with interest, Walter to resign from the Planning Commission and admit his ethical violations. "And if we refuse?" Walter demanded. In response, Liam activated the projection system again. This time, it displayed a comprehensive evidence package prepared for federal prosecutors, detailing conspiracy, fraud, insider trading, and misappropriation of funds. "This information goes to the FBI, SEC, and District Attorney tomorrow morning unless all documents are signed," Liam explained. "I've already provided a preliminary report that's triggered an investigation into the light rail property purchases. This evidence would conclusively link all of you to the conspiracy." "You destroy your children's mother?" Diana challenged. "You destroyed their father," Liam countered without hesitation. "They deserve to know what kind of people raised them." As the adults argued and negotiated, Audrey suddenly stood. "We want to talk to our father," she announced, indicating herself and Cooper. "Alone." Liam nodded, leading the teenagers to a small study adjacent to the conference room. Once inside, Cooper immediately confronted him. "Did you really send all that money home for us?" "Every month," Liam confirmed, along with letters, emails, and video calls that became increasingly one-sided over time. Audrey's eyes filled with tears. "Mom said you stopped calling because you didn't care anymore." "I never stopped," Liam said quietly. "Eventually, Diana stopped putting you on the calls. Then she stopped taking them altogether." "Why didn't you just come home?" Cooper demanded. "The contract had severe penalties for early termination," Liam explained. "And the final 2 years paid triple the annual salary, money I intended for your college funds." He opened a laptop, accessing files that showed years of communication attempts, financial transfers earmarked for the children's future, and video messages that had never been shared with them. "I'm not blameless," Liam admitted. "I chose distance to provide security. I trusted your mother to maintain our family while I was away. Both were mistakes I'll always regret." Audrey studied him with new awareness. "What happens to Mom if she doesn't sign your papers?" "She faces potential federal charges, along with Roland, your grandfather, and Uncle Oscar." "And what happens to us?" Cooper asked, his young face showing the strain of these revelations. For the first time, Liam's composed facade cracked slightly. "That depends partly on your choices. You're approaching adulthood. You have agency in determining your path forward. Would you want us in your life?" Audrey asked directly. "After we pretended not to know you?" Liam considered his answer carefully. "You were manipulated by adults you trusted. That doesn't erase the hurt, but contextualizes your actions. We could establish a relationship if you wanted that." The siblings exchanged glances, communicating silently in the way only close siblings can. "We need time to think," Cooper finally said. "Take all the time you need," Liam replied. "My door remains open." As they returned to the conference room, they found Diana, Roland, Oscar, and Walter in intense discussion, calculating their limited options. The atmosphere was tense with the recognition that Liam had executed a nearly perfect trap. "We'll need our own legal counsel before signing anything," Roland insisted. "Of course," Liam agreed reasonably. "You're welcome to consult attorneys tomorrow when communication with the outside world resumes. Tonight, you'll have time to consider your positions." He checked his watch. "Dinner will be served at 7. Until then, you're free to enjoy the property. Though I advise staying within the perimeter, the surrounding forest can be treacherous for those unfamiliar with the terrain." As the group dispersed, Liam returned to the control room where his team awaited. "They'll try to leave," Damon predicted. Roland and Oscar already attempted to reach the access road, Mira confirmed, monitoring the property surveillance. They turned back when they realized how dense the forest becomes. Liam nodded, unsurprised. They'll spend the afternoon searching for ways to escape or communicate. By dinner, they'll understand there are none. "Is that ethical?" Colin questioned hesitantly. "Is what they did to me ethical?" Liam countered. "They've had years of freedom while benefiting from my sacrifice. They can endure one night of isolation while contemplating their actions." As predicted, the afternoon saw various escape attempts by the adults. Roland and Oscar tried navigating to the main road, but became disoriented in the woods. Walter attempted to signal passing boats on the lake, only to discover the property's shoreline was designed to be invisible from the water. Diana searched desperately for communication devices, finding none that functioned. Only the children remained in their cabin, processing the day's revelations and discussing their options. By dinner time, a storm had moved across the lake, adding nature's fury to the psychological pressure building within Lakeview Lodge. As lightning flashed and thunder rolled, Liam's guests gathered one final time, their faces showing the strain of recognition that they were truly trapped until Liam decided otherwise. The stage was set for the final act of Liam Knox's meticulously orchestrated revenge. Chapter 8: The Sentence. Dinner that evening was served amid the storm's fury, rain lashing against the lodge's windows while thunder punctuated the tense silence around the table. The elaborate meal went largely untouched as each guest contemplated their precarious position. "I think we've reached the point of decision," Liam announced as dessert was cleared away. By morning, I'll need your answers regarding the agreements. This is a legal detention, Roland argued, though his confident tone had faded considerably since their arrival. Is it? Liam countered. You all came voluntarily. The property is isolated, certainly, but the doors remain unlocked. You're free to leave, though navigating miles of forest during a storm would be inadvisable. Diana, who had remained quiet through most of dinner, finally spoke. What happens if we sign? What guarantee do we have that you won't send the evidence to authorities anyway? You have my word, Liam replied simply. Oscar laughed bitterly. Your word? After all this elaborate revenge plotting, you expect us to trust your word? I spent 7 years honoring my commitments under the most dangerous conditions imaginable, Liam stated, his voice hardening. I said I would provide for my family, and I did, beyond what most men could offer. Every promise I made, I kept. He looked around the table, meeting each adult's eyes in turn. Which of you can say the same? The silence that followed was answer enough. You have until breakfast to decide, Liam concluded, standing from the table. Choose wisely. As the group dispersed for what promised to be a sleepless night, Liam intercepted Audrey and Cooper. A moment, please. He led them to his private study, a warm space filled with books and a crackling fire that offered refuge from the storm outside. I wanted to give you these, he said, handing each teenager a small flash drive. They contain videos and messages I sent over the years. Things your mother never shared with you. Cooper turned the drive over in his hand. Why now? Because regardless of what happens tomorrow, you deserve the truth, Liam answered. Not my version or your mother's version, but the objective reality of what transpired. And what about us? Audrey asked. Are we part of your revenge plan too? Liam's expression softened. No, you're both victims of the adults' choices, mine included. The agreements I've prepared include provisions for your future, regardless of your relationship with me. What kind of provisions? Cooper asked suspiciously. College funds, independent of Diana or Roland's finances. Housing allowances when you're ready. Career mentorship if you want it. Liam paused. No strings attached. No obligation to maintain contact with me if that's not what you want. Audrey studied him carefully. Why would you do that after how we treated you? Because that's what a father does, Liam answered simply. Protects his children's future, even when it's difficult. Even when it hurts. For the first time since his return, tears formed in Liam's eyes, quickly blinked away, but noticed by both teenagers. Get some rest, he said, composing himself. Tomorrow will be challenging for everyone. Throughout the night, Liam's team monitored the cabins, tracking each occupant's activities. Diana and Roland argued bitterly, blame shifting between them as they recognized the inevitability of their defeat. Oscar attempted to draft alternative proposals, searching desperately for leverage that didn't exist. Walter made peace with his fate, recognizing that his reputation, the thing he valued most, was already compromised. Only the children slept soundly, unburdened by the guilty consciences that plagued the adults. Morning arrived with clear skies and calm waters, the storm having passed both literally and metaphorically. As breakfast was served, Liam noted the resigned expressions on the adults' faces. Your decisions? He inquired after coffee had been poured. One by one, they capitulated. Diana signed the agreement, surrendering all claims to Liam's assets and acknowledging her financial misdeeds. Roland committed to repaying the misappropriated funds, effectively bankrupting his over-leveraged business. Oscar accepted responsibility for his duplicity and the required restitution. Walter agreed to resign from the Planning Commission with a statement acknowledging ethical violations. Wise choices, Liam commented, collecting the signed documents. Brandon will return your phones and restore communications. Vehicles are waiting to transport you to the airport whenever you're ready to depart. That's it, Diana asked incredulously. After all this, we just leave? What did you expect? Liam inquired. Physical retribution? Prolonged suffering? I'm not a monster, Diana. I simply wanted accountability. Roland, never one to accept defeat gracefully, attempted one final assertion of control. You've had your victory knocks. But remember, you've been gone 7 years. We've been raising your children. That bond doesn't disappear because of some paperwork and dramatic revelations. Liam's expression remained neutral. You're right. Which is why the final decision remains with Audrey and Cooper. He turned to his children. You've heard and seen everything. You've had time to consider your options. The choice of where and with whom you live going forward is yours alone. Diana's confidence faltered. They're minors. Legally, I've prepared emancipation documents for both. Should they choose that path, Liam interrupted. The family court judge who reviewed the evidence of your manipulation was quite sympathetic to granting them decision-making authority. All eyes turned to the teenagers, who exchanged a silent glance before Audrey spoke for both. We need time, she said firmly, away from all of you, to sort through what's real and what isn't. Cooper nodded in agreement. We're going to stay with Grandma Jenkins for a while. Diana's mother, who had never approved of how her daughter had handled the separation, had evidently offered a neutral sanctuary. Liam accepted this with dignity. A wise decision. Take all the time you need. Within 2 hours, the property began to empty. Diana and Roland departed first, stone-faced and separate, their relationship already fracturing under the strain of mutual recrimination. Oscar and Walter followed shortly after, both avoiding eye contact with Liam as they entered their respective vehicles. The children were the last to leave, pausing to speak with Liam privately before their departure. Will you still be here? Cooper asked hesitantly. When we're ready to talk. I'll be wherever you need me to be, Liam promised. On your timeline, not mine. After they left, Liam stood on the lodge's deck overlooking the lake, experiencing not the satisfaction he had anticipated, but a complex mixture of vindication and loss. Mira joined him, the team's work now complete. Was it worth it? She asked. Liam considered the question carefully. They've been held accountable. They'll face consequences proportionate to their actions. The children know the truth. That doesn't answer my question, she noted. No, Liam admitted. It doesn't. The truth was more complicated than simple revenge could address. 7 years couldn't be reclaimed. Trust, once shattered, left permanent fractures even when repaired. The fantasy of a restored family had died the moment he'd seen the lack of recognition in his children's eyes. What remained was the future, uncertain but honest, built on truth rather than comforting lies. Have the property prepared for sale, Liam instructed Bernard when he called later that day. Its purpose has been served. Chapter 9. Ashes and Rebirth. 6 months passed before Liam Knox returned to Milwaukee. He had spent the interim traveling, not to conflict zones this time, but to places of personal significance. His childhood hometown in Oregon, the base in North Carolina where he'd first met Bernard during their Marine service, the small Caribbean island where he'd once promised himself he'd retire when his work was done. Through it all, he maintained minimal contact with the world he'd left behind. Bernard provided occasional updates on the consequences unfolding in his absence. Diana and Roland had separated, their relationship unable to withstand the financial collapse of Baxter Development and the public humiliation that followed. Roland had declared bankruptcy, his investors abandoning him after learning of his unethical financing methods. Oscar had sold his home to repay Liam and moved to Arizona, seeking a fresh start away from the reputation he'd earned. Walter had resigned from the Planning Commission amid a quiet ethics investigation, his standing in the community permanently diminished. The children had remained with Diana's mother, attending therapy and rebuilding their sense of reality after years of manipulation. They occasionally sent brief messages to Liam, not ready for direct contact, but maintaining a tenuous connection. When Liam finally returned to Milwaukee, it was to a luxury apartment downtown. Not the penthouse command center, but a simpler space overlooking the river. His revenge completed, he had no need for elaborate surveillance or strategic positioning. His first visitor was Bernard, arriving with the final accounting of Liam's financial empire, now secured against further attempts at misappropriation. You could retire comfortably, Bernard noted, reviewing the figures. Never work another day if you didn't want to. Liam shook his head. Idleness doesn't suit me. Then what's next? The question lingered between them, the true purpose of Liam's return still unspoken. I've been offered a position with the International Infrastructure Coalition, Liam finally revealed, overseeing rebuilding projects in regions recovering from natural disasters. Bernard raised an eyebrow. Back to dangerous locations? Challenging ones, Liam corrected, but with better accommodations than shipping containers. Before Bernard could respond, Liam's phone chimed with a message. He checked it, his expression revealing nothing. Audrey and Cooper, he explained. They want to meet. The following day, Liam sat at a quiet table in a neutral location, a bookstore cafe chosen by the teenagers. When they arrived, he was struck by how much they'd changed in 6 months. Both stood taller, their faces showing the maturity that comes from confronting difficult truths. "Thank you for coming," Liam greeted them, restraining the urge to embrace children who were still essentially strangers. "We've been watching the videos you gave us," Audrey began once they were seated, "and reading the letters. There were so many," Cooper added quietly. "Mom said you only sent a few." Liam nodded, unsurprised. "What matters is that you have them now." For nearly 2 hours, they talked, tentatively at first, then with increasing openness. The teenagers shared their experiences since Lake Tahoe, the therapy that was helping them process years of manipulation, their cautious reconnection with Diana under their grandmother's watchful supervision. "Mom's different now," Audrey explained, "without Roland's influence. She's more like we remember from when we were little. Grandma makes her take responsibility," Cooper added with a hint of satisfaction. "No more lying." Liam listened without judgment, recognizing the children's need to rebuild a relationship with their mother despite her betrayal. "People can change when properly motivated," he acknowledged. As their conversation wound down, Cooper finally asked the question that had clearly been weighing on both teenagers' minds. "Are you staying in Milwaukee?" "My new position begins in 3 weeks," Liam explained. "It will involve international travel, but not like before. Shorter projects, regular returns to a home base." "Here," Audrey pressed. Liam studied his children carefully. "That depends partly on you. There's nothing keeping me in Milwaukee except the possibility of knowing you both." The siblings exchanged one of their communicative glances before Cooper responded. "We'd like that. To try at least. Then I'll establish my base here," Liam promised. "On your timeline, not mine." As they prepared to leave, Audrey hesitated before asking one final question. "Do you hate Mom for what she did?" Liam considered this carefully. "Hate requires continued investment in someone else's significance. Diana no longer holds that place in my life." "That's not really an answer," Cooper observed with surprising insight. "No," Liam acknowledged with a small smile. "It's not." The truth was more nuanced than he could express to his children. He didn't hate Diana. Hatred would imply ongoing emotional engagement. What he felt was something colder and more final, the complete excision of someone who had once been central to his existence. In the weeks that followed, Liam established a new rhythm to his life. He prepared for his upcoming position while creating space in his schedule for regular contact with Audrey and Cooper. They began with supervised visits, gradually progressing to day trips and eventually weekends at his apartment. Diana remained peripheral to this developing relationship, not directly oppositional, but maintaining cautious distance. The divorce settlement had left her financially secure but humbled, her social standing diminished by the revelations about her conduct. 2 days before Liam was scheduled to depart for his first international assignment, he received an unexpected visitor. Diana stood at his apartment door, her appearance markedly different from their last encounter. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect styling, replaced by simpler attire and a face that showed the strain of recent months. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice lacking its former confidence. Liam stepped aside wordlessly, allowing her entry but not offering refreshment. The gesture was clear. She was permitted presence but not hospitality. "The children tell me you're leaving again," Diana began, standing awkwardly in his minimalist living room. A 2-week assessment in the Philippines, Liam confirmed, followed by regular returns to Milwaukee. Diana nodded, seemingly relieved. "That's good. For them. Why are you here, Diana?" She took a deep breath. "To acknowledge what I did. Properly. Not under coercion or threat, but voluntarily." I don't need your acknowledgement, Liam replied coldly. The legal documents covered everything necessary. This isn't for you, Diana countered with unexpected directness. It's for me. My therapist says I can't move forward without taking full. For several minutes, she spoke without interruption, detailing her gradual slide from lonely wife to active conspirator, her initial rationalization that the children needed stability more than distant financial support, her eventual embrace of the freedom and wealth Liam's absence provided without the inconvenience of his participation. I rewrote our history to justify my choices, she concluded. Then I taught that false narrative to our children until they believed it completely. Throughout this confession, Liam's expression remained impassive. When Diana finally fell silent, he asked simply, "Is that all?" His coldness seemed to wound her more than anger would have. "You'll never forgive me, will you?" "No," Liam confirmed without hesitation. "Forgiveness implies a continued relationship. Ours ended the moment you taught our children I was nobody." Diana flinched but didn't disagree. "What about the children? How do we co-parent from this position?" "We don't," Liam stated flatly. "They're old enough to navigate relationships with each of us individually. I won't interfere with their connection to you unless you attempt to manipulate them again. And if I do," Liam's smile was chilling in its certainty, "then you'll discover that Lake Tahoe was merely a demonstration of my capabilities, not their limit." After Diana left, Liam stood at his window overlooking the river, reflecting on the symmetry of life cycles. 7 years ago, he had departed Milwaukee with absolute certainty that he was securing his family's future through sacrifice. Now he prepared to leave again, but with clearer vision about the nature of loyalty and betrayal. His phone chimed with a message from Cooper, confirming plans to see him off at the airport in 2 days. Another message followed from Audrey, sharing her latest college application essay for his feedback. These simple communications, trivial to most parents, represented a victory more meaningful than all the calculated revenge of Lake Tahoe. His children were choosing to rebuild a relationship with him, one honest interaction at a time. Liam Knox had returned from 7 years overseas to discover complete betrayal. He had engineered meticulous consequences for those who had wronged him. But in the ashes of his former life, something unexpected had emerged. The possibility of authentic connection unburdened by illusion. He would never forgive those who had betrayed him. That capacity had been burned away during long nights in shipping containers and dangerous days in conflict zones. But he had found something more valuable than forgiveness, the ability to build a future unencumbered by the weight of false expectations. As night fell over the city, Liam began packing for his upcoming trip, placing a framed photo of Audrey and Cooper on his bedside table. Not the outdated image he'd carried overseas for 7 years, but a recent picture from their first unsupervised weekend together. In it, their smiles were tentative but genuine, their eyes clear with the relief of finally living in truth. That, he decided, was the most effective revenge of all. Not the destruction of those who had wronged him, but the reclamation of what truly mattered from the wreckage they had created. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.